Running cadence is often talked about by runners, but something they rarely take action on. Now, it could be that you don't quite understand what cadence is, you don't understand how it's going to affect you, or you simply don't want to change it. But I'm here to tell you, you should consider it. Because running cadence, when optimized, could be the game changer that gets you to your next PR and out of injury. So in this video, I'm going to tell you about the science of running cadence, give you tips and tricks on how to optimize yours, and share with you the best practices for increasing your cadence. Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Kevin Vandy, physical therapist and running specialist with Competitive Edge Physical Therapy. My team and I are on a mission to reduce running injuries worldwide. 80% of runners get injured every year, and that number needs to decrease. So we're here with these videos to help provide education, decrease injury, improve performance, and allow you to do what you love to do, which is run distance for as long as you possibly can. Thanks so much for listening. Please hit like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to get more of my videos in the future. So let's first define running cadence. Quite simply, it's how many steps you take per minute while running. So if you count the number of steps on your right foot and count the number of steps on your left foot for a full minute of running, you will get your running cadence. That number is most likely going to fall between 160 and 180 for most runners. Although sometimes you may have read or seen it represented as half of that number, meaning they're just counting the number of steps on the right foot or the number of steps on the left foot, in which case you'll have to multiply it by 2 to get your full running cadence. So what factors affect running cadence? First of all, your speed. The faster you run, the higher your cadence. So you have to take more steps per minute to be able to cover a larger distance faster. So speed is one of the number one determinants of running cadence. If you run slower, let's say under a 10-minute mile, you're likely to have a lower cadence, where as you start running faster than a 10-minute mile, you're going to have a higher cadence. Another factor that affects running performance is how tall you are. On average, those who are taller have longer legs, and because they have longer legs, they take less steps to cover the same distance as someone who is shorter. So I'm 5'6", and my cadence is going to be different than someone who is 6 foot. We have different leg sizes on average, not all the time, but on average, and we're likely to have different cadences to cover the same distance. Another factor is how long you've been a runner. Novice runners, people new to the sport, tend to have a lower cadence, and those who have been in the sport a longer time tend to have a higher cadence. I guess experience increases your cadence. Another factor is fatigue. When you're tired, when you're at the end of a race, or maybe you've done a long hill climb and you're not at your optimal, you're not performing at your best, maybe you've tacked out at threshold and now you're really tired, that is going to decrease your cadence. It's going to take much more energy to move your legs forward at a faster clip. So you'll see runners at the end of a race have a lower cadence than when they started the race. The final factor that affects cadence is injury and pain, and this one can swing either way. Sometimes when runners experience pain, they'll take more steps to limit the pressure per step, and so they are on their toes and they take a bunch of little steps to avoid maybe putting pressure on their heel, for instance, where other runners will take less steps per minute to try and avoid pain. So it can go either way. You can either have slower cadence or higher cadence, but in any case, pain and injury affect cadence. So how do you measure cadence? The easiest way, the simplest way, is to use a running watch. Garmin or Apple has a metric that you can put on on the watch face. You can change what shows up on your watch to see your cadence in real time. So when you're on a run and you want to know how many steps you're taking per minute, just look down at your watch and it should be right there. That's by far the easiest way to track cadence, but it's not the only way. If you don't have a smartwatch or you want to be low tech for whatever reason, that's cool. You just have to count manually the number of steps you take per minute. The easiest way to do that is count the steps on your right and left foot for 30 seconds and multiply it by 2, and you will get your running cadence. Again, should likely fall between 160 and 180 for most runners. So the question you're likely here for is, what's the optimal cadence? Why am I reading everywhere that runners should run at 180 steps per minute? It's everywhere, right? Magazines, books, 180, 180, 180. That seems to be the ubiquitous number that all runners turn to when looking for the best running cadence. Well, how did it come about? So Jack Daniels, no, not the drink, but the famous running coach, was looking at videotape from the 1984 Olympics and studied the distance runners, and he counted, on average, how many steps they took per minute. And guess what? It came out to the number 180. So logically, he thought that every runner, if the elites are doing it, every runner should aim to run with a cadence of 180. Makes sense, right? Well, there's a glaring problem. Myself and probably most of you are not elite runners. We're recreational runners, maybe masters runners. Maybe it's a strong hobby of ours, but we're probably not running sub 5-minute miles, mile after mile. So, because we're not elites, maybe 180 isn't the best cadence for us. Even though it's everywhere in research and it'll show that 180 is the most optimal cadence, a lot of recent research is questioning that. It might not be the best. As it turns out, running cadence is very personal. Believe it or not, this is super cool, your body will naturally run at the cadence that is most energy efficient. How cool is that? You don't even have to think about it. Your brain and body will do it for you. It'll take a calculation of all your strength, range of motion, your training, how long you've been a runner, and it'll have you run at the cadence that's most energy efficient. Again, your goal is to get from point A to point B. So it's gonna allow you to do that at whatever uses the least amount of energy. That's super cool, but it might not be the absolute best for you. What do I mean by that? Well, researchers decided to find out what the mathematical best cadence was for runners on average. They measured factor after factor, biomechanics, training, metabolics, everything you can think of to figure out what the mathematical best cadence was for a runner. And what they found is on average it's 3% than what your natural, 3% more than what your natural cadence is. So let's put some numbers to it. Let's say your cadence currently is 165 steps a minute. To increase it 3% would get you to approximately 170 steps a minute. They found that that's your mathematical best cadence. And they found that most runners that increased their cadence by 3% reduced their injuries, decreased the energy cost of running, and were able to increase their performance. Sounds like a winning trio. So why don't more runners change their cadence? Number one, they're not tracking it. So that's step one. Just start tracking your cadence and find your average. Don't judge it. Whatever your cadence is, it is. Remember, your body is choosing the best for what you can tolerate and what your body can give you now. Totally cool. Once you've tracked your cadence, then you want to start to optimize it. Again, it's only 3% more, very small. They actually found that if you went more than 6%, so if you doubled that 3% and you went more than 6%, it decreased your performance and increased your injury risk. So there is a Goldilocks zone. 0 to 3% is where you want to stay. Now, how are you going to feel when you start to change your cadence? Runners don't want to feel more fatigue, don't want it to hurt, but guess what? It's going to feel a little different. You're used to running one way for so long that any change is going to feel unnatural. I've trained thousands of runners to increase their cadence using metronomes and running retraining, and I can tell you every single one of them did not like it at first. So you're not going to either. That's okay. It's like being a surfer. You got to swim through the big waves to get to the calm water before you can catch a wave and come in. Similar with you change your cadence. You got to get through the hard part at the beginning until it gets easy. Because what's going to happen is as you start to change your cadence, which takes approximately 4 to 6 weeks to really nail down that change, you're going to feel a lot better at the end. Remember, you're going to decrease your injury risk, you're going to run with more energy, using less energy, and you're going to increase your performance. Win-win-win. So it's 100% worth doing. You just got to get through the difficult part at the beginning. The other cool part about increasing your cadence is it'll get you to the most optimal running stride for you. Most new runners, those that haven't been running more than 2 years, and even those that have been doing it longer, have an overstride. They land too far in front of their body. That creates a braking force, increases injury, isn't good. The goal is to find a way to land right underneath your body, and the best way to do that, you back into it by increasing your cadence. When you increase your cadence by 3%, it'll naturally decrease your stride length to an optimal range. Again, one change, multiple positive outcomes. So now that you see the benefit of changing your cadence, let's figure out how to do it. First, you have to track it. Get a watch or count it. That's step one. Number 2, you have to do what's called running retraining. You have to practice your cadence while you are running. And so the best tool to do that is a metronome. And they come in different forms. There are apps that have a metronome in them. There are apps that play songs at a certain beat. So let's say you want to change from 165 cadence to 170. You can find songs that play at 170 beats, and as long as you got pretty good rhythm and you can follow that beat, you can use that as your metronome. Or you can go old school, get a metronome app, and it makes a super annoying beeping sound, beep, 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 as you run. It works really well. Musicians use it. You can use it as a runner. I can tell you right now, it's just really annoying. So you want to try to change your cadence within that first 4 to 6 weeks and then get rid of it, because it can be frustrating to run with. But how do you use that metronome to get the best results? You don't want to use it for your whole run, because then you're going to rely on it. Maybe your first few runs, use it for the whole time just to get used to it. But after the first week or two, you probably want to play it for maybe the first 10 minutes to settle into that cadence, then shut it off for the middle of your run so your brain and body try to figure out that cadence on its own, and then by the end you turn it back on again as a test and see if you're still running that same cadence. If you're not, increase your pace and practice it and run with the metronome. If you are, give yourself a couple thumbs up and say, sweet, I was able to nail that, and just decrease using the metronome run on run on run. Again, it's probably going to take you about 4 to 6 weeks to make a solid, stable change in your running cadence. It's going to feel hard at first. You're going to feel fatigued at first. It's going to be tax you more energy-wise at first. All normal and okay. But once you hit that 4 to 6 week mark, you're going to feel really good. You're going to have more energy. You're going to have a little bit more pep in your step, and it's just going to feel lighter. Or as I like to say, the ground's going to feel just a little bit softer. So let's review. Everybody runs currently at the cadence that is best optimized for their body, but it's not the absolute best cadence they can run at. Increasing your cadence by 3% over where you are now on average gives you the best possible results for running performance and to decrease your injury risk. It takes about 4 to 6 weeks to make that change and make it stick. It's going to be hard at the beginning, but push through it. Use a metronome or smartwatch to track it or count it old school, but start tracking it and then work over the next 4 to 6 weeks to increase it by 3%. Your body will thank you, and so will your performance, and I can't wait to hear about your results. If you found value from this video and you've changed your cadence and it's worked really well, drop a comment below so other runners can see this works and it can create a positive impact. Share your stories so others can benefit from them. Hey everyone, thanks so much for listening. It means the world to me. I'll be releasing more videos each week about how you can reduce your injury risk in running, improve your performance, and run for a lifetime. Until next time, guys, train smarter and perform better.